Every night at 3:33, my dead wife calls to ask why I'm still alive. The first call came 3 months after the funeral. I was half asleep on the couch, a half-empty glass of whiskey in my hand, when my phone buzzed against the coffee table. The screen lit the room in pale blue light, cutting through the dark like a blade. Incoming call. Anna. For a few seconds, I didn't move. My brain couldn't process what I was seeing. Anna. My wife. Dead 3 months to the day, I answered. Hello? Silence. Then breathing, faint, soft, rhythmic. The way she used to breathe when she was half awake, curled beside me, my throat went dry. Who is this? The breathing stopped. A long pause followed, thick and heavy, then a whisper cracked and trembling. Why are you still alive? I dropped the phone. It hit the hardwood floor with a thud, the screen flashing once before going black. When I picked it up again, the call log was empty. No missed calls, no history, nothing. Just 3:33 a.m. glowing at the top of the screen. I told myself it was a prank. Some sick bastard who'd hacked my number after reading the obituary, but deep down, a colder part of me knew better. Anna used to joke that if she died first, she'd find a way to call me. Just to check if you're eating properly, she'd say, and to haunt you if you're not. She said it the night before the accident. I didn't sleep after that. I sat on the couch until dawn, the phone on the table in front of me, watching the seconds crawl by. At 7 o'clock, I called the carrier. The tech support rep told me there was no record of any call to or from my number at that time, no sign of any interference either. He asked if I was sure it wasn't a dream. I hung up. That day, I went to the cemetery. It was a gray morning, drizzle hanging in the air like a veil. Anna's grave sat at the edge of the hill, her name carved clean and simple into the granite. Anna L. Gray, 1989, 2024, beloved wife, always listening. The last 2 words hit harder than I expected. Always listening. The ground around her headstone was wet, the soil darker where the rain hadn't reached. I stood there longer than I should have, waiting for something, a feeling, a sign. Anything. All I heard was the wind moving through the trees. But as I turned to leave, my phone buzzed once in my pocket. New voicemail, timestamp 3:33 a.m. I played it. Static filled the speaker, thick and uneven. Then faintly beneath it, her voice. It's cold here. The message ended with a soft sound that could have been a sigh or a whisper. Come home. That night, I unplugged my phone, turned it off, buried it in the dresser. I slept for the first time in days. But at 3:33 a.m., the landline rang. I didn't even remember I still had one. It came with the apartment when I moved in after she died. The ringtone was old-fashioned, shrill, mechanical. I stared at it from the couch, heart pounding. It rang 3 times, then stopped. I let out the breath I'd been holding. Then my cell phone, still turned off, lit up from across the room. Incoming call. Anna. I answered before I could think. The line hissed softly, like ocean waves in the distance. Anna? You weren't supposed to stay. Her voice was clearer now, but wrong. Distant, as though she was speaking through water. Stay where? In the dark. Where are you? You closed the door. I can't see. Her tone cracked, splintered into a sound that made my stomach twist. Laughter and sobbing mixed together. Anna, please, just tell me where you are. Here. Then silence. The line went dead again. I checked the call log. Nothing. The battery was full. Though the phone had been off, the wallpaper had changed. From the photo of us on the pier to something else, a close-up of her face, eyes wide open, mouth slightly parted, not smiling, just watching. The next morning, I called her sister, Claire. She didn't pick up right away, but when she did, her voice was tight. I know why you're calling, she said. You've gotten calls too. A pause then, every night. Since the funeral, I swallowed. What does she say? She asks if we remember what happened. But she never says what it was. Claire's voice trembled. You said she died in the crash, right? That she was gone before the fire started? That's what the coroner said. She doesn't think so. What do you mean? She keeps saying she's still burning. That night, I sat in the dark, waiting. When the clock on the stove flicked to 3:32, I turned the ringer off. At 3:33, the light on my phone flashed anyway. No sound. No vibration. Just light. Then the voicemail icon appeared. I played it with shaking hands. You're not supposed to answer other people's phones. The voice wasn't hers this time. It was deeper. Broken. Like something imitating her, but getting it wrong. Then I heard her scream. Sharp, brief, cut off by static. And under it, faint but unmistakable, Another voice whispered, "She knows you lied." The next day, I drove out to the crash site. The road still bore the burn marks, a blackened scar cutting through the trees. They said she lost control, skidded, hit a guardrail. The fire was instantaneous, but standing there, looking at the charred metal of the old rail, I noticed something. Her car's remains were gone and long since taken. But someone had placed something at the edge of the road. Her phone, the same one they said, melted in the wreck. The screen was cracked, black, but as I picked it up, it lit for just a second, 33, and then faintly, from the speaker, "Why are you still alive?" That night, I left her phone on the table beside mine. At 3:33, both started ringing. The same tone. The same rhythm. I answered hers first. "Anna, you shouldn't have come back." Then from my phone, still ringing, another voice, my own. "You weren't supposed to survive." The next morning, I woke on the couch with both phones still in my lap. Anna's screen was dark again, the battery completely drained despite having been off the night before. Mine was still lit, 3:33 frozen on the display. The time hadn't moved since the call. When I stood, the air in the apartment felt thick, like breathing through fog. Every light had a faint yellow halo around it, and the silence pressed in so heavy that I could hear my own pulse in my ears. I walked into the kitchen and stopped. On the counter, written in the condensation from the window, were 5 words. "You shouldn't have answered twice." I didn't go to work that day, I just drove. The city blurred past, gray and unrecognizable. I didn't remember the turns I took, only that every radio station hissed with static. When I finally pulled over, I was parked outside the funeral home. The windows were dark, the sign still half covered by the tarp from renovations. I shouldn't have gone in, but the door was unlocked. Inside smelled of dust and chemicals. The fluorescent lights flickered faintly. At the end of the hall, a small office door stood open, papers scattered across the floor. A single file sat on the desk. Anna's name, her death certificate, except the signature at the bottom, the coroner's, was smudged out. In its place, written in faint pencil, "Cause of death, pending." That night, I called Claire. "I went to the funeral home," I said. "You shouldn't have," she whispered. "She wasn't cremated." "What?" "The ashes, they gave us a box, but it's empty." "The certificate's unfinished," Claire's voice cracked. "Stop, please, don't say her name again. It makes the calls worse." "You're still getting them?" "Yes," a pause. "But it's not her anymore." "What do you mean?" "She used to ask questions. Now she just laughs." I could hear it then, faintly, on her end of the line. The shrill ring of a second phone. Claire gasped. "It's 3:33. The call cut out." I didn't sleep. I sat on the edge of the bed, waiting for the sound that I knew would come. When the clock hit 3:33, both phones buzzed. Her voice came through first, soft, distant. "You took the wrong box. What are you talking about?" "I can't see the light." My phone crackled, and through the interference came another voice. Mine, again, but quieter. "She's not the only one buried." The line went dead. I drove to the cemetery before sunrise. The gate was locked, but the padlock had been cut. I walked straight to her grave, the fog low and thick across the grass. The earth above her plot was disturbed, freshly turned. My stomach turned. I dropped to my knees, clawed at the dirt until my hands bled. 3 inches down, my fingers hit metal. A box, not a coffin, a phone. Old, heavy, wired like the kind you'd see in a hospital room. The receiver buzzed faintly. I lifted it. "Why are you still alive?" The voice wasn't Anna's anymore, it was mine. "You were supposed to stay." I drove home in a daze. Every streetlight flickered as I passed. When I reached the apartment, the lights were already on. The smell hit me before I even stepped inside. Smoke? Faint and chemical, like burned plastic. On the kitchen table sat both phones. The screens glowed bright white. 33. The wall above them was covered in photographs. Dozens of them, printed on glossy paper. Each one showed Anna. Not alive. Her in the car, surrounded by flame. Her in the hospital, pale and still. Her in the grave, eyes open. And in the reflection of her eyes, me. The landline rang. I didn't want to answer, but I did. "Anna? You lied." My knees went weak. "What did I lie about?" "You said you tried to save me." "I did. You walked away." The line filled with static so loud I thought my head would split. "It wasn't an accident." Then, fainter. "You left me." I threw the phone across the room. It shattered against the wall, but the ringing didn't stop. It grew louder, sharper, every phone in the apartment ringing in perfect sync, vibrating against the surfaces like something alive. I covered my ears, but the sound burrowed into my skull. Then, through it all, her voice again. "Look behind you." I turned. The air shimmered, bending the light like heat over asphalt, and for a heartbeat she was there, Anna, or what was left of her. Her skin was gray, her eyes milky, her hair still damp as if from rain. Smoke curled from the hem of her dress. She stepped closer, every movement slow and deliberate. I stumbled backward until my legs hit the couch. "Anna," I whispered, her head tilted. "You told them I was dead." Tears blurred my vision. "You were?" "No." She reached up and pressed her hand to my chest. Cold, heavy. "You killed me." I shook my head, choking on breath. "It was an accident." "Then why did you lock the door?" The phone stopped ringing. The silence that followed was worse. Her hand still on my chest, she leaned in close enough that I could feel the frost of her breath. "You don't get to wake up this time." The light in the room flickered once, twice, then went out. When it came back, she was gone. The phones were gone. The wall was bare. Only one thing remained, a fresh burn mark on the floor, shaped like a handprint and carved into the wood beside it. 3. I haven't slept since. Every night I sit awake, waiting for the next ring, the next voice, the next accusation. But the calls don't come anymore, only the silence, the kind that hums, low and steady, like a heartbeat just beneath the floorboards. Sometimes when the clock hits 3:33, I think I hear her again, not through the phone, but from somewhere closer, breathing right beside me. The clock by my bed glowed 3:32 a.m. For the last 3 nights, nothing had happened. No calls, no whispers, no flickering lights. The apartment was quiet except for the faint hum of the fridge. I told myself maybe it was over. Maybe whatever had crawled its way out of that wreck had finally gone back to sleep. But the quiet felt wrong, too careful, like the pause between lightning and thunder. At 3:33, the hum of the fridge stopped, and every light in the apartment went out. For a moment, all I could hear was my own breathing. Then, from somewhere in the dark, came a sound I hadn't heard since the night of the fire, the faint crack of bending metal. I fumbled for my phone, but the screen stayed black. The only light came from the digital clock across the room, still frozen on 3:33. Then a voice, not from the phone this time, from the corner of the room. "You can't ignore me anymore." My throat closed. "Anna? You keep calling me that." The air shimmered, and for a second I thought I saw her, or something shaped like her, a blur of pale light and ash-gray skin. "That's not my name." I stood, my legs trembling. "Then what do I call you?" She tilted her head. "You already know." I backed away until my hand hit the wall. "What do you want?" Her voice cracked into static. "You lied." "I didn't. You said you tried to save me." "I did." She moved closer, each step accompanied by a faint crunch like glass underfoot. "You locked the door." I couldn't finish. The words stuck in my throat, memories flashing like old film, smoke filling the car, my hand on the handle, her screaming my name, and me running. The light flickered again. When it steadied, she was gone. But the smell of smoke was still there, faint, chemical, unmistakable, and on the wall where she'd been standing, letters burned into the paint. "Stay with me." I didn't remember falling asleep, but I woke up on the floor as sunlight poured through the window. The letters on the wall were gone. The clock read 7:02 a.m. I went to the kitchen, poured coffee, and tried to convince myself I was losing my mind. Then I saw the phone, not mine, hers. It sat on the counter, screen cracked, faintly glowing even though it had no battery, no charger, nothing. The screen showed a single text message. "I can see you." I threw it in the sink, ran the tap, and held it under the water until the glow finally died. But when I turned the faucet off, the water kept running, thick, black, reeking of smoke, and beneath the sound of rushing liquid came a whisper. "It doesn't wash off." That evening I drove to Claire's. She opened the door before I knocked. Her face was pale, her eyes hollow from lack of sleep. "She's been calling again," she said. "Every night." I stepped inside. The curtains were drawn tight. The air smelled faintly of burned paper. "What does she say?" I asked. Claire shivered. "She doesn't say anything anymore. She just breathes, like she's standing right next to me." I rubbed my face, exhausted. "We have to stop this. Somehow." She nodded toward the kitchen table. On it sat a box, black metal covered in soot. "I found this in Mom's attic," she said. "It's from the house you and Anna bought. The fireman gave it to her after the crash." She pushed it toward me. "I think it's hers." Inside was an old cassette recorder, melted along one edge, the reels still intact. A label on the tape read 333. I stared at it. "You think this is—" "I don't know," Claire said. "But if she's really trying to reach you, maybe this is how." The air in the room seemed to thicken around us. I hit play. At first, nothing but static. Then the faint sound of a car engine, idling, and Anna's voice. "Please, just stop. Don't go. We can fix this." My stomach turned. I remembered that night, the argument, the way I slammed the door. The tape continued, tires screeching, metal crunching, the hiss of flame. Then faintly, between bursts of static, he left me. The tape clicked, rewound, and played again, over and over. He left me. He left me. Claire covered her mouth, tears spilling down her cheeks. She's not angry. She's stuck. I shut the recorder off. Then how do we unstick her? That night, I dreamed of the crash again, but this time I wasn't outside the car. I was in the passenger seat. Anna sat beside me, her face calm, eyes fixed on the road. "You can't wake up until you listen," she said. The car drifted toward the guardrail. I tried to grab the wheel, but my hands passed right through it. When the impact came, everything went white. Then her voice whispered from somewhere close. "You never burned." I woke, gasping, the smell of smoke still in my nose. And there, sitting on the nightstand, was the cassette recorder. The play button pressed itself down. Anna's voice filled the room. "You never burned. You left me burning. Now you have to trade places." The tape clicked, hissed, and began to rewind. The tape kept rewinding, long after it should have reached the beginning. The reels spun faster and faster, until the whine of the motor turned into a low electric hum. The smell of hot plastic filled the air. Then it stopped. The play button clicked down on its own, and Anna's voice came through, softer than before, calm, almost gentle. "You can end this, but you have to come back to where it happened." I sat frozen, listening. "You left me there. You left yourself there." The line of the tape hissed with faint crackling, like rain on tin. "When the fire came, you ran." I stayed. One of us had to. I stopped the recorder, but the sound didn't stop. Her voice kept playing, even though the reels had gone still. "You shouldn't have taken my name off the house." The voice deepened, split into two, the second one distorted, a rough echo of my own voice behind hers. "You made yourself the survivor. You can fix it." The recorder clicked again. The reels turned backwards. The whisper came again from inside the machine, not the tape. "Come home." I drove without thinking, through the city, past the edge of town, toward the dark stretch of highway where the accident happened. The road curved along the cliffs, wet with fog. My headlights caught the reflective strip of the old guardrail, twisted and rusted. For a moment, I thought I saw her car again, the shimmer of metal through the mist. But when I stopped and stepped out, there was nothing, only the burned smell, and the faint ring of a phone coming from the trees below. I followed it down the slope, the sound getting louder with each step. Halfway down, I found what I hadn't seen before, the rest of the wreck. The police had only cleared the upper half. The back end of Anna's car still lay buried in the undergrowth, crushed and blackened. Smoke still leaked from the cracks, faint but real. Inside, sitting upright in the driver's seat, was a phone. Hers, perfectly intact, screen glowing faintly. Incoming call. Me. The air buzzed in my ears. I reached through the broken window and picked it up. "Anna?" "You came back." Her voice came through clear as if she were standing right behind me. "You shouldn't have driven away." "I know," I whispered. "I'm sorry. You can't apologize from the wrong side." "What do you mean? You never left." The trees around me creaked. The smell of smoke thickened. When I looked up, the world above the ridge shimmered, light bending, warping. For a second, I could see another version of the highway. Clean, untouched, My car parked by the side of the road, and standing beside it, staring down at me, was me. The other me didn't move. He just watched. The way someone watches a stranger they think they recognize. I stepped closer to the wreck. The air felt heavier, pressing down on my chest. The phone in my hand vibrated once, then went silent. When I looked again, my reflection at the top of the hill was gone. But someone was standing behind me. The heat hit before I turned, a wave of dry air like an open furnace. The forest around me flickered orange flames. Anna stood on the other side of the car, untouched by the fire. Her dress didn't burn, but everything around her did. "You left the door locked," she said softly. I shook my head, tears stinging my eyes. "It jammed." "You turned the key." The fire spread fast, eating through the leaves, licking the wreck's twisted frame. "I didn't die that night, John. You did." I stared at her. "That's not—" "You were in the driver's seat." The ground shook. Smoke filled the air. I looked down, and the phone's reflection in the glass door showed me what I hadn't seen before. My own hands. Blackened, charred, cracked open like burnt wood. The light above shifted again. The world splitting into two versions. The burning forest, and the empty road above where another me stood, still alive, still breathing. Anna's voice came through the static, overlapping with mine. "One of us has to stay. One of us has to burn." The flames climbed higher, curling around my legs, but there was no pain, only heat. And the sound of a phone ringing over and over, getting louder until it drowned everything else. "Choose." I looked up at her. "If I stay, you'll let him go?" She smiled. "You already did." The last thing I saw was her reaching out a hand, pale through the smoke. I took it. The fire flared white. When I opened my eyes, I was sitting on the couch. The apartment was quiet. Morning light filtered through the curtains. My phone buzzed once on the table. New voicemail. I pressed play. "Hi, it's me." Anna's voice. "I just wanted to let you know I'm home now. You don't have to worry anymore." A pause. "But you shouldn't answer if I call again." The message ended. I walked to the window. The city looked different, softer somehow, as if the light had dulled at the edges. Down on the street, people moved in slow motion, their faces turned away. I turned back toward the couch. Someone was sitting there. Me, alive, whole, phone in hand. And when it rang, he answered. I could hear Anna's voice through the receiver. "Why are you still alive?" He froze, eyes wide. The phone slipped from his hand, and the light. In the room dimmed to gray, the apartment was silent except for the faint hum of the clock. The other, me, the one who'd answered. Anna's final call, and sat frozen on the couch, his face drained of color, eyes wide and wet like glass. I wanted to speak, to tell him not to listen, to drop the phone. But the air between us was thick, dense, unmoving. He turned slowly toward me, and when his lips parted, my voice came out. "You shouldn't be here." I stepped back. I didn't mean to come back. He stood, movements heavy, deliberate. Every sound, his footsteps, his breathing, matched mine exactly, half a beat out of sync. "One of us was supposed to stay," he said. "But you didn't decide." The lights above flickered. The shadows twisted. I could see shapes moving in them, faces blurred and melting, whispering behind a curtain of smoke. "What happens if we both stay?" I asked. He smiled faintly. "Then no one wakes up." The phone on the couch rang again. That same tone, sharp and hollow, the one that always came at 3:33. We both turned toward it. Incoming call. "Anna." He looked at me. "It's for you." I shook my head. "No, you answer." "You already did." "It's for you." He picked up the phone and held it out. The ringing didn't stop. It pulsed through the air, vibrating the floorboards. I hesitated, then took it. The moment my fingers touched the receiver, everything went silent. Then came the whisper. "You remember now." The apartment faded. I was standing in the car again. Flames reflected in the windshield. Smoke curling around the glass. Anna sat beside me, her face calm, her hands folded in her lap. "You never left," she said softly. "You've been here the whole time." I saw myself, I said. "Alive, breathing." She smiled sadly. "You always see what you want to see." The heat grew stronger. The air shimmered. "You said I locked the door." "You did." "Then why am I here?" Her eyes glimmered, silver in the firelight. "Because I forgave you." I didn't know what to say. She reached over, placed her hand on mine. Warm, solid, real. "Now you have to forgive yourself," she said. Outside, through the broken window, I saw the same road I'd driven 100 times before. But now it was empty. No wreck, no flashing lights, no smoke, just the long stretch of asphalt disappearing into the mist. Anna turned to me. It's almost time. For what? The last call. She leaned closer. When you wake up, don't answer. The world began to fade. The flames, the heat, the smell of metal and smoke dissolving into stillness. I opened my eyes. The apartment was quiet again. Morning light cut through the curtains, falling across the couch. The phone sat on the table in front of me. For the first time, it wasn't glowing, just black plastic, still and harmless. I exhaled. My hands trembled. I didn't know if I'd been asleep for a night or a year. The clock on the wall read 3:32 a.m. Then, softly, the phone buzzed. One single vibration. The screen lit up. Incoming. Call, Anna. I stared at it. My pulse thudded in my ears. For a moment, I almost reached for it. Almost pressed answer out of habit, out of grief, out of guilt. But then I remembered what she'd said. When you wake up, don't answer. The ringing stopped. The screen went dark. Outside, the city lights flickered once, then steadied. The hum in the walls faded, and for the first time since the accident, there was silence. Real silence. A week passed. Then 2. No more calls, no more whispers, no more 3:33. I cleaned the apartment, threw away the broken phones, and started walking again, just to feel the air on my face, to remind myself that I was still here. Some nights, I caught myself talking to her anyway, not through a phone, not through static, just quietly, to the space beside me on the couch. And sometimes, if I listened closely, I thought I heard her breathe back, not trapped, not angry, just there. This morning, when I woke up, the sunlight looked different, brighter, softer. I stood by the window for a long time, looking out over the city. The clock on the wall ticked normally. Now, no frozen minute, no ghosts in the circuits. Then I noticed something on the windowsill. A phone, not mine, old, cracked, familiar. The screen was dark, but a note sat beneath it, written in handwriting I knew by heart. Thank you for answering. Don't wait for me, I smiled. For the first time, it didn't hurt. I opened the window, set the phone on the ledge, and let the wind take it. It fell, turned once in the sunlight, and vanished into the street below. That night, when the clock hit 3:33, I didn't hold my breath. No ringing came, only the faint sound of waves against the shore. Steady, peaceful, endless. And in that silence, for the first time in a long time, I finally slept. The rain came the night after I let her phone fall. A soft, steady drizzle that blurred the city lights into pale rivers of color on the window pane. I sat in the dark with a cup of coffee growing cold in my hands. The smell of rain cutting through the last traces of smoke that had haunted the apartment for months. For once, I didn't check the clock. I didn't need to. Still, when I finally glanced up, the red digits glowed 3:33 a.m. Nothing happened. No ringing, no whispers, no static, just the soft sigh of rain. But something inside me felt unfinished, a weight that wouldn't leave my chest, out a sense that one more thing waited to be said. I picked up my phone. The screen was dark, smooth, silent. For a moment, I considered calling her number, just to see, but I didn't have to, because the number was still memorized in me, burned into the back of my mind like an old scar. I opened the voice recorder instead, and I started to talk. Hey, Anna, it's me. The words felt strange at first. Dry in my mouth. I don't know if you can still hear me. Maybe this isn't even reaching you anymore. Maybe it's just me talking to an empty room. But I want you to know I remember. I remember how we fought that night. About everything and nothing. About leaving, about staying. About how small the apartment felt when it rained. I remember how the streetlight flickered outside the windshield right before my voice cracked. I took a breath. I should have stayed. I should have dragged you out, even if it meant going with you. I've been living with that moment ever since. You told me not to answer. You told me to wake up, and I think I finally did. The air in the room shifted, just slightly, the way it does when someone enters or leaves. For a second, I could have sworn I smelled her perfume. Lavender and smoke. I looked up, and she was there. Not the burning ghost, not the shadow that haunted my walls. Anna, whole, calm, smiling, the way she looked before the fire. You finally listened, she said. My chest tightened. Is it really you? What's left of me? Why are you here? To say goodbye. Her voice trembled, but the light in her eyes was warm. You kept me here. Every call, Every whisper. It was just you trying not to let go. Tears blurred my vision. I didn't mean to. I know. She stepped closer. The room felt warmer. You've forgiven yourself, haven't you? I nodded slowly. I think so. Then it's time. The clock on the wall clicked softly to 3:34, the first time it had ever moved forward on its own. The glow of the numbers brightened, filling the room with soft light. Anna smiled. You made it out, she said. That's all I ever wanted. And then, as the light grew brighter, her outline began to fade. I'll wait for you, but not too soon, okay? I promise, I whispered. Her voice came one last time, faint, distant, fading with the light. Good night, John. Then she was gone. The rain stopped. The city outside was silent, washed clean. For a long time, I sat there with the empty coffee cup in my hands, listening to the hum of the world returning. When dawn finally broke, sunlight poured across the floorboards. It touched the wall where the old burn mark had been, and for the first time, there was nothing there, just smooth paint. Peaceful. I opened the window and let the morning air in, the smell of rain, the sound of birds, the pulse of life all around. And beneath it all, somewhere deep, a quiet memory, her laughter, soft and unbroken. Weeks passed. I moved out of the apartment, left the city. No more phones, no more clocks glowing red. Sometimes, though, when I walk by the ocean at night, I hear something faint beneath the waves, a soft ringing, the echo of a call I'll never have to answer again. And I smile, because I know what it means. She's still there, but she's free. And finally, so am I. The end.